Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about Paul Dellman. Now, I know many of you are going to go, who's Paul Dellman? Who's Paul Dellman? Let me tell you who Paul Dellman is. Paul Dellman is one of the world's great dealers. I put him in the same class as Al Cohen, Denny Haney, and Phil Thomas. Paul Dellman. He was a magnificent dealer. He was born July 21st, 1928. He passed away May of 2017 at the age of 88. Whenever Paul was in town, I used to go see him. And he toured. He loved reels. He's the first person, you know the trick where you pull the silk handkerchief through the microphone stand? The first time I ever saw that, it was being demonstrated by Paul Dellman. Loved it. You know what I love about dealers? Dealers understand what's practical and what works. I saw Al Cohen by the way, the Al Cohen lecture was in Joe Bruno's basement. It was one of the SAM meetings that we had, and Al Cohen came to lecture. And I will never forget that lecture. I still do magic that he taught me in that lecture. And I still do magic that I learned from Paul Dellman. These guys, they know so much. This, by the way, is one of his books, Paul Dellman Entertains. It's a short publication. I don't know how many tricks are in it. Maybe, let's see, 1, 2, maybe 5 or 6 tricks are in this book. I don't know. But he wrote another book, and I looked for it. I looked in boxes. I could not find it. It's in my library somewhere. That tells you about my library, right? If I can't put my hands on a book. But he wrote a book called It Takes Guts. And it was about how to become a professional magician. And I read and reread that book, and it really is inspirational if you're interested in going that far. Now, I wanted to share with you a couple of things about Paul Dellman. He used to say, I didn't find this anywhere in the literature, but I remember it from his lectures. He'd pitch an item, and he'd say, "It's guaranteed for life. Your life or mine, whichever comes first." I love that. Your life or mine, whichever comes first. Well, the guarantee's no longer good, let's face it. But he used to sell stuff like that, and I loved him for it. I enjoyed it. Now, on one of the magic forums, and I don't know which one it was, I usually put the links here. I didn't. I'm sorry. I apologize. If you are Dustin Stinnett, I'm sorry. Dustin Stinnett, May 7th, 2017 at 4:50 p.m. He posted this, and I want to share it with you. The magic world is all the poorer today with the loss of not just a personal and loved friend, but also a legend of the magic world. News comes today of the passing of my friend, Paul Dellman, past owner of a large magic store in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Magician, creator, manufacturer, and friend. Paul has now gone on to join his beloved wife, Andy, who preceded him in death. Certainly he will be performing beggars' coins and others of his wonderful effects with the use of his reels as he entertains in that largest of all theaters. May he rest in peace. And he goes on to say, Paul was an important part of my education in this craft. In my youth, whenever I was at a convention he was at, usually when I was at a convention, since back then Paul went everywhere, he let me work behind his booth. Paul was an incredible pitchman. Always had the big crowd around the booth, and he did. He had a way of drawing people to himself. He had an entertaining manner. He was funny. He was a joy to watch. He paid me, but I would always end up spending my salary on his stuff. And it always worked around. I always broke even. Imagine that. Thank you, Paul, for everything. I don't know why I started thinking about Paul recently, but I did. And he's one of those characters that if you knew him, you will never, ever forget him. He was an amazing man, and I miss him dearly. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Please subscribe down below if you've not done so already. Please comment. I love your comments. Let's hear them. If you knew Paul, if you comment. I love to hear your comments, your recollections about him. Have a great day, everyone.